I said I wasn't going to do any more buttons, but I've had a timeout, and I had another idea that I kind of wanted to toss out there, I guess. We talk about, these aliens and matrices and these constructs of like meaning making, like trying to make sense of it all. And I guess it's pretty obvious that I'm on board with this idea that maybe like this Judeo-Christian culture that we come from is maybe not like the end all be all. Like maybe there's more that has been studied, or more that is going on than. And I'm not trying to get into like conspiracies. This is just like spiritual, philosophical speculation. But in those like communities, or in those veins of thought, we tend to talk about I don't know how to get at what I'm getting at. Like, I remember when I first started learning about weird stuff, like I don't know what to call it other than my journey to find who I am and my truth. So like everything from like New Age not dogma, but like New Age paradigms or solutions or reasons why, like maybe there is such a thing as like an indigo kid, or they talk about all these different kinds of like souls or people. And I studied like some of the philosophies or some of the belief systems that talk about reincarnation. I looked into some of the pre-Christian and even the pre-Celtic, like druidry kind of traditions, and I kind of found myself, I guess I've always been more into the Hermetic studies, like the I don't really know what they call it, but the philosophies of basically heresy, like taking these big spiritual concepts and kind of challenging them, I guess. I'm starting to stumble into a knowing that a lot of the things that I've questioned or thought about for a long time and always thought were just too weird or too out there, that other people have actually been talking about them and studying them for a long time already. And some of those traditions or those philosophies or some of those people will talk about rainbow souls or light workers or star seeds or twin flames, or all these different things, all these different ways of like, I guess, like identifying who or what we are and how that's different, or like why we feel different. And I'm really starting to feel more called to that. And I used to think that it was a mode of spiritual bypassing, or like a way to say, oh, well, I must be a light worker. That must be it, and then I almost feel like the process of belief will put a stop on curiosity. And I don't want to like get myself married to some concept, whether I came up with it myself or somebody else coined the thought and I went along with it. But I do wonder, like, how weird am I willing to get in my imagination with people who are differently brained, and people who have different immune systems, and people who have different hormonal systems, and how far-reaching I want to get with my own genealogy. Because, like I said previously, I can trace European roots to Germany and France and England. But I also have genetics from a matriarchal, grandmother who might have links with moon-eyed people. So it's, and really, like, genetic, physiological digging around, like how much can that really do us any good? But then, like I said, we get into the moon-eyed people, the traditions of, I think it's the Cherokee tribe, or it's either the Cherokee or I can't remember now. But there's a teaching or a line of stories that talk about a race of people who were in the Americas purportedly before Europeans, in our frame of history, in our frame of reference, before Europeans arrived. And they were light-skinned, they had red hair, and they were usually talked about being nocturnal. And that's why they got that moon-eyed people name. And I don't know. I mean, maybe they were nocturnal people. Maybe they were photosensitive, and it did have something to do with their eyes, and the sunlight was too much for them. Maybe they just had light blue shaded eyes that they, attributed to the moon. I don't know. But you think about things like that, and you think about peoples differently looking peoples throughout history in places that we don't think they should be. And maybe it's a whatever, this or that, or maybe it's a folklore or a culture thing where a lot of these statues and the ancient statues in India look like spaceships because it was a cultural thing. That was just what they thought was a pretty way to portray, like, the body as a temple. It's hard to it's hard for me to really commit to, a race of aliens came and genetically engineered the Vedic people differently from the moon-eyed people in the Americas, from the Native Americans people as we know them today. I don't know if I can really commit to that, but I do really feel like maybe there are different souls. Like, I know that our bodies are different, and I can't quite figure that one out, because you'll have two bodies that are different in different ways that came from the same physiological genetics. But I feel like on a soul level, on a spiritual level even, our needs are just as unique as what I've been harping about as far as hormones and immune system and biomes and things like that. Maybe there are different soul groups or types, or and I don't use that as making like corrals for different people to create an us and a them. It's more of like, maybe there's an even richer layer to the diversity within humans and all living things. Maybe all this who's a what's it about aliens and ancient alien history, and maybe it's not that batshit, and maybe this like slow trickle of little breadcrumb information that we're getting from all kind of organizations, from government and this and that, saying that actually there are unidentified flying things that we kind of said we could explain them, but it's actually that we can't. It's actually a lie. Like, maybe that, and maybe that's also a lie. Like, maybe we're maybe there is more to this than, and maybe being curious about it isn't something that we need to be ashamed of, or giggly about, or embarrassed about. And I guess the only thing that I really meant to say is that if there are light workers, if there are star seeds, um, I think it's just a thought that occurred to me. I think that we have this idea that like light workers are these fairy princess, doggo loving veterinarians, and it like that's fine, that's beautiful too. But I think that in order to be a light worker, in order to illuminate the yuck that's going on in our world, you have to walk through the depths of hell. Like, the underworld isn't a place away from here. The world, the word world is in that name, the underworld. It's a hell is here, babies. Lightworkers have to. I heard a speaker. I think his channel is called Universal Mastery on YouTube. I think his name is Jeremiah, and he talked about having walked through hell, and now he's kind of here to set the record straight. Like, he's been there, and he wants to tell people that this culture that we've been living off of, or feeding our mental biomes. And I don't think that he calls himself a light worker at all, but I think that maybe I am a light worker. But it's not about trying to pull humans into some perception that I have of what light is. It's about bringing light to those fucked up structures and those constructs that we obediently like revere and uphold and worship. It's bringing light to things that need to be burned the fuck down. Being a light worker, I wouldn't try pulling somebody else into light. I'll shine light on them. Might really hurt them, but I'm not so deluded that as a light worker, I think I can bring people, a soul of a human, into the light of creation, of source. I can be a pillar of light for this planet, for this living, breathing rock that we cruise around on like a little bit of bacteria. I can be a pillar of chaotic, creative, destructive life force. I can be a conduit as a light worker to knock all this shit down. I'm so much more vast than like a consumer who just wants to consume an idea of being like a good, happy light worker person. I'm not a consumer of goods that thinks if you give me positive vibes and prayers and well wishes that's all the world needs now. I know that as whatever a different thing that I am, if it's a light worker, if it's, I've been toying with this idea. We're 14 minutes in. I'm getting done anyway. So like, I'll just say it. Like, I've been toying with this idea that, there are souls on this earth in numbers that are so much more vast than they have ever been. Where are all these souls coming from? If we reincarnate, and yeah, there are twin flame things, but I think that's always been a thing, if it is a thing. There are elemental spirits that break off into human souls. So we think of elemental spirits as being very different, very separate from humans. This thing, they're these elementals, are earthly energies, are earthly sprites and fairies and Pan and the horned god and the green man. These are all elemental spirits. And I just, like, that's infinite. I really think that there are people walking this planet who are elemental spirits. I love the mythology of Lilith. I love the idea that masculine and feminine are separate counterparts originally, and that feminine and masculine didn't get along as separates. And so clones were made, basically. Like, we're in the Adam and Eve story of Judeo-Christianity, we are just carbon copies of each other in different clothing. And Lilith is an elemental in my mind. The way I relate to the story, she's an elemental spirit. She is of this earth, and she was made first. It wasn't Adam. Adam was made before Eve, but Adam wasn't made before Lilith. And she's still here, babies. And I think that there are people on this earth who are made of the same stuff as Lilith's offspring. And I encourage you to read up on Lilith and her offspring. And I encourage you to be curious about who her lover was. Because it wasn't Adam. There are definitely different things going on than we all sort of came from the same stuff, but our genetics were jumbled up based on geography and radiation and ice ages, travel. No, I don't think that is. And I think at this time, with as many souls as are on this planet just swarming, there's some new faces. There are some new dynamics. I think the last few generations, the last 100 years or so, we've really been piling some new elements in. I don't think that it's as simple as a sort of light and good, or like that there's robot false people and good people. I don't buy it, but there are definitely a lot of things going on right now, and I think a lot of it's relatively new. It's kind of exciting. It's a lot of poking around in the dark, but I don't know. I guess I relate to that moon-eyed people in that way. Like, that's the dark is, maybe that's my feminine nature, the negative energetic flux, or I don't know, but that the dark, I am more mushroom than human. I love the dark. I'm actually going to turn off this light right now because it's been a bright day, babies. Love, love.